In the latest PTS patch notes, Zenimax fixed some of the mitigation calculation. Hardy, elemental ages, preparation, and armor passive mitigation bonuses are currently additive on the live server, while they should be multiplicative. But that is just the tip of the iceberg, and a huge part of mitigation in ESO is completely broken. So before we look into how these fixes are going to affect us, I need you to understand how mitigation works now. The mitigation sources ZOS intends to fix aren't the only ones that don't work properly. Full credit to Sparker because he found out how it works, and you can find a link to his mitigation calculation spreadsheet in the description. Aside from the mitigation sources ZOS mentioned, minor and major Aegis, disdain harm, necrotic potency, undeath, vampire fire damage penalty, minor and major evasion, and runic sunder are also part of this additive section of the mitigation formula. Additive means that we're adding these mitigations as flat numbers, rather than multiplying them with each other. This means that stacking these additive mitigations should be extremely powerful, and it is, but not as powerful as the math would suggest, because the numbers on these tooltips are lies. ZOS was clearly already aware of how broken the mitigation calculation is for a while, but instead of simply making them multiplicative, they just reduced their numbers. So the real values of minor and major Aegis are 4 and 8, rather than 5 and 10. Disdain harm is 12 instead of 15, necrotic potency is 2 instead of 3, undeath is 24 instead of 30, major evasion is 17 instead of 20, minor evasion is 9 instead of 10, and Arcanist's runic sunder grants 1, 3 and 5%, rather than 2, 4 and 6. The vampire fire damage penalty stays true to its value though, because fuck the players. There is also one more modifier that ZOS added. This additive portion of the mitigation formula has a base value of 10%, but then your damage taken gets increased by 11.1%. So if you have none of these additive mitigations, it will do nothing. Because after reducing a number by 10%, increasing it by 11.1 will then bring it back to its original value, roughly. But if you have, let's say, only minor ages out of these additive mitigations, then this little trick will slightly move it more towards what it should be. Minor ages is additive with this base 10%. So in this part of the calculation, your damage taken gets reduced by 14% and then increased by 11.1%. This means that instead of reducing your damage taken by only 4%, minor Aegis reduced it by 4.44%, which is closer to the 5% value that's shown on the tooltip. Now that you understand mitigation, let me give you an example. Let's look at just martial damage for simplicity, and let's say you have preparation, hardy, 5 heavy armor pieces, 1 light armor piece, and minor ages. How much mitigation are you going to get from disdain harm? The tooltip says 15%, but let's see. In the first scenario, you have 10% from preparation, 2% from hardy, 5% from heavy armor bonuses, minus 1% from light armor penalties, and 4% from minor aegis. So in this additive part of the mitigation formula, you're reducing damage taken by all of the aforementioned plus the base 10%, so 30% in total. And then you multiply it by 11.1%. So we are left with 77.8% of damage taken. In the second scenario, we also have disdain harm. Now keep in mind, the tooltip is a lie and disdain harm's real value in the calculation is 12%. It's additive, so we're straight up adding it to the 30% from the first scenario. So we are first reducing it by 42% and then increasing by 11.1%. And we end up with 64.4%. By going from 77.8% of the damage taken down to 64.4%, you'll notice a 17.22% difference. So disdain harm was even stronger than what it says in the tooltip, even though in math its value is only 12%. But that increased value was mostly thanks to preparation, hardy and armor bonuses boosting it, due to the additive formula. But these are being fixed and turned into multiplicative next patch, while disdain harm's real value stays at 12. So how much mitigation will we gain from disdain harm in the similar situation after the fixes ZOS is planning to make? In the first scenario, we have 4% from minor aegis, the base 10%, and also we have the minus 1% from light armor penalties, because ZOS is only making the bonuses multiplicative. So we're reducing the damage by 13% and then increasing it by 11.1%. So we're left with 96.7% of damage taken. In the second scenario, we also have disdain harm. So now we're reducing the damage by 25% and then increasing it by 11.1%. So we're left with 83.3%. So disdain harm reduced our damage taken from 96.7% down to 83.3%. So this time will notice only a 13.86% difference, less than what the tooltip says. So, ZOS added penalties to all additive mitigation sources in the past to prevent them from getting too strong. But they're not removing these penalties now that they're slowly fixing their formula. So we're going to be taking more damage than we should. An average tank with 5 heavy, 1 medium, 1 light armor setup, and with just minor Aegis, is going to notice a 4.14% damage increase next patch. But a necromancer tank with all of that, plus disdain harm, necrotic potency and undeath at 50% HP, is going to take 16.16% more damage from dots, which is a massive increase. If you're once again in 5 heavy, 1 medium, 1 light with minor Aegis, but this time also with major evasion, you'll notice a 10.67% damage increase from AoE attacks, because major evasion is also additive. And if you've had minor evasion on top of that, you'll notice a 16.16% increase. In the end, there has to be a reason why making every mitigation multiplicative is so hard for ZOS, because they're going to great lengths to avoid doing that. They only acknowledged it now because Sparkrip managed to reach 100% damage mitigation within this additive formula, thanks to the new Lucent Echo set and mitigation bonuses from scribing. ZOS noticed that, and they straight up lied about fixing Lucent Echoes to be multiplicative in second PTS week. Well, what they really did was reduce its real value from 20 to 17%, though it still shows 20 on the tooltip. They also, for whatever reason, did not make the armor penalties multiplicative, along with the armor bonuses. ESO's backend seems to be an absolute mess. Like, for example, in a recent Q&A, they said that hiding guild tabard is not a simple thing to implement, because of the way they're coded. So I'm just gonna leave it here. I won't be trying to speculate why ZOS is doing what they're doing, because there's probably a reason why it isn't so simple. But I just wish they'd be honest about it, because that patch note lie about fixing Lucent Echoes was just fucking stupid. If they for whatever reason can't make everything multiplicative, then at least stop putting lies in the tooltips and be honest about how the mitigation works. Because right now we can't make conscious build decisions based on just numbers, and we have to basically test everything in practice because of how much of a mess it is. It's actually way more messy than what I told you so far, but I didn't want to make the explanation too intimidating at once. On top of everything I've said about the additive calculations, ZOS is also giving you penalties for using too many mitigation sources, and they're completely arbitrary. For example, you'll get a 2% mitigation penalty if you're using Esoteric Griefs and Minor Aegis. You'll get a 15% penalty if you're using Esoteric Griefs, Minor and Major Aegis, and the new Lucent Echo set. There is no reason to them, you just have to test every single combination if you want to know how much of a penalty you're going to get, which is just laughable. And that's it for this video. If you have any more questions, you can comment down below, or join our Discord server Wildheart. As always, feedback will be appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my Twitch. Thanks for watching and see you next time.